rescue me. Beware all the debris. Have you come to save me? Bring a light, 'cause I can't see what's in the dark, and I'm afraid. Just bring a light, 'cause I can't see what's in the dark, and I'm afraid of being. I can't believe I let you get this close, 'cause all I seem to be is another me ghost. Have you come to rescue me? We're going round and around, I know, but without thorns, baby, it's not a rose. You're sickly sweet, poison dipped in honey, so sweet. Made you last time lovely. I know you're bad, but I don't care. Run your hands through my hair. Oh please, boy, you keep me running. So sweet, just to give me nothing, but I don't want anyone else, even if I lose myself. You're sickly sweet, 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 sickly sweet, sweet.
How you doing, Kenzie Culver? Look at you.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I love the energy of your compound. Really stylish, good contrast. I dig it.
Thank you. Yeah, just kind of like this is my living room, so just the best backdrop I could find.
I know. Well, it's great to see you here. I mean, from Loveland, Colorado, just an outstanding singer-songwriter. I mean, time flies. I mean, you have so many songs, Kenzie, but time flies. What a bop.
Thank you. Yes, I so appreciate it. That kind of was my song of the fall. It's always fall in my head, at least. It definitely is my favorite of the songs that I've written. So I'm really glad that it's being received so well.
What I love about them, Kenzie, and you do this with all your songs, but you're right. You see it more and more as you go through your discography is, it's alt pop. It's really dancey. It's really catchy. But then you go into the lyrics and you're like, oh my God, this is like Linda Ronstadt. This is like real deep stuff,
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's just a kind of passion of mine to make pop music sad again. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the wrong way of saying it, but I love the juxtaposition of this, what you said, the dancey, upbeat music with kind of sad and deeper lyrics behind it, because I think all music can have that deeper meaning to it.
I know. It's great. It's great, Kenzie. And you've been songwriting for a while, which is no surprising. I mean, when you go to the summer battle of the bands at Boyd Lake, for example, right? In Loveland, Colorado, and you were just really getting your feet wet with songwriting.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about these first experiences when you start kicking butt with writing songs.
Oh gosh. I mean, I was 13, I think. So 8 years ago, and they told us we had to write a song, at least one for our set. And I was really stressed out because I'd never written a song before. And I was I wanted to. I'd written poetry and things like that. But I was how do you write a song? What does that even mean?
Right.
And we were driving, my family and I were driving, and I was just chilling in the back on my phone, as teenagers do, I guess. And my dad was he took my phone and he was you can't have this until you write a song for your battle of the bands. And I was fine. And so I start writing, and I'm angry, and I'm this is and I just, it was so exaggerated because I wasn't really that mad, but I was I'm gonna turn this into I'm fight the man. I'm tired of this system. Everyone's trying to control me. And that was the very first song I wrote when I was 13. And I think it just
look at that,
jumped from there. Yeah.
And I love that because when people listen to your songs, they're probably think oh my God, this is so exaggerated. This is not the real emotion. But Kenzie, and tell me if I'm wrong, but this is actually stories that have happened to you. You amplify them, but these are real things.
I only amplify in the way that would make it universal. But I have no doubt that like especially with Time Flies, like that feeling of like depression, just like overwhelmingly fatigued with nothing to do, which is a weird place to be in. Like that was absolutely like 100% real emotions. And like the line, like I've been in this shirt for days, like that was real. Like I had been wearing, even I went into my co-write wearing the same shirt that I'd worn for like 5 days prior. And we were doing the write on Zoom, and I was like, what, why would I change? Like there's nothing to do. I'm not leaving the house. I'm not doing anything. Right. And so yeah, no, like all of the lyrics are fully like from the heart and like true. I write it with any like idea of like, okay, well also like here's how I would say it, how my best friend say it, or like someone else say it, and I like combine all of those together to make a song that I feel like everyone can relate to.
Old soul, ENZI, old soul you are. That's the point. So, okay, I'm going to ask you about a story that you probably have told. No, I know you've told a million times, but it's just fascinating. And it's part of your story, you know, and I think my audience would get a kick out of it. And it's obviously, you know, that little brush with death you had when you were 4. And it's really the first time you got exposed to music as well. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, at 4, you were rushed to Denver Children's Hospital. You had this scare with your brain, right?
Yeah. So, I was like feeling this numbness in my hands and my feet when I was a kid. And like we just moved from California to Colorado, and everyone was like, oh, it's altitude sickness. I was like, altitude sickness does not cause like numbness. That's like not how that works. So my mom ended up taking me to get an x-ray, and the x-ray showed things that the doctor was concerned about. But before we were getting any of this information, they were just like, you got to go. Like, you got to go to the hospital, like right now. And it turns out I had this condition called Chiari malformation. And it's basically like your brain just like doesn't sit in the right spot in your head. And it can cause some like complications with like spinal fluid and all this other stuff. And like the reason I was feeling this numbness in my hands and my feet was because that spinal fluid like was just pooling in like the base of my neck and creating a cyst that was about to rupture on a nerve. And so like the reason they were rushing us so fast because they didn't want us to like they didn't want the cyst to rupture, because otherwise I would have been paralyzed from the neck down. So kind of a crazy thing, but I remember being in the hospital room. I don't remember like the surgery or anything, but afterwards I had a lot of family that had just like come to help support me, and they played music. Like they played guitar. Like, I mean, I was 4, so I was like, you know, VeggieTales theme songs and that kind of thing. But I just remember like I was a 4-year-old on morphine, and they had like my head wrapped after the surgery, so I couldn't speak. And when music was playing, I just felt so much more at peace.
Wow.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I love music. That's like how I think it was birthed in me, that like I want music that makes other people feel at peace. Not in a shallow way of like I only want to write happy songs, but want to write songs that people can listen to and they're like, hey, like I felt that too. Like I'm not alone in this feeling, because that's the worst, is feeling like you're the only person who's going through something, and you're not.
But don't you think, Kenzie, and by the way, you know, your artistic moniker is ENZI. Your first name is Kenzie, just clarifying for my audience. Kenzie, but Kenzie, don't you think that almost like, you know, the way you live your life, just looking at your music videos and just looking at your socials and just looking at the way that you're just kicking butt all over, you know, Nashville, Belmont, all over the place. It's like this brush with, you live life with such passion, basically. That's what I'm trying to get. It's like you, but in a more profound way than YOLO. Like what I'm saying is, you really seem like you embrace every challenge. You're songwriting, you're doing all sorts of activities. You give back to the community in Colorado with the musical foundation. You do so much. Don't you think that part of this has been because from early on, you realized that life is fickle and it can go in any minute?
Absolutely. Like life is too short to not be passionate about anything and everything. And like you know, I learned that a lot still, because sometimes like it feels weird and scary to like be really excited about something that maybe you think other people won't be excited about. But I just say screw it. Like what other people think, like what society like wants you to like be this like chill and like aloof and apathetic kind of person, like that's boring. Like I want to know what your passions are. I want to look into your eyes and like see the fire behind it. So that's what I try to be for other people.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Were you like super popular in high school, ENZI, in Colorado?
No,
Totally.
No way. I was such a big nerd. I think that like I was still a little self-conscious and like in my shell. But college and like being just like a more realized person, getting to know myself more like makes me feel a little more like,
yeah,
I guess not popular, but yeah, like excited and like
confident in your own skin. I love that. I love that, ENZI. And okay, so you've been in Nashville now for a minute. You know, it's Music City, of course, everyone knows that, but Colorado has a great music scene. So I'm curious. I said I'm going to ask ENZI, like, how do you compare the two? Obviously, because Colorado is bringing out some really good music. Like, how would you compare and contrast?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. It's hard to compare because obviously Nashville has this like established scene, somewhat of like, they feel like the grandfather of music. Like they grew up with it. They cultivated it, you know, like working hard, like, you know, back in my day kind of thing. But Colorado, I think, has definitely inspired some of like my modern twists on music.
Yeah.
And like definitely like I personally was in kind of the pop punk scene of Denver, Colorado. And so like they definitely influence the pop side of me, because I like that like alternative sound, just like you said. Yeah, they're really hard to compare and contrast. It's honestly like apples and oranges, but they have both taught me a lot of like great lessons to incorporate into how I do music, how I approach music, how I approach other people's music. It's super awesome.
Yeah, and it actually makes sense. Like your elements are like from all over, you know, it makes sense from both cities. And also like you're an audio engineer, right?
Yes, I do have an audio engineering certificate.
Look at you. Look at Kenzie. So many hats and doing them all so well. I mean, so tell us a little bit about that. And what I mean is the production of your songs, the sound engineering is on point. And what I mean by that, Kenzie, is like you really know not to overdo it. You really know to just have the levels at the right. Like, how do you do that, Kenzie? Like, do you have a group of people who you like? How are you able to? You do it better than almost anybody I've heard recently.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's such a good like compliment. I appreciate it. But when it comes to like producing the tracks, I take somewhat of like a overseeing role. So of course I work with a producer and a mastering engineer as well. Just because I find that where I am weak, other people are strong. And so I would rather like showcase as many talents as I could than just be like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna like force my way through it. Or even worse, like avoid my weaknesses. But point is, when I am producing a track, I want to make sure that it properly portrays the like meaning behind it. So time flies. Like I wanted it to feel like this like drawn out, the days are going on and on until suddenly they're not, and like you're hit with life. And that's kind of like the verses are slow and like, you know, long and drawn out, and like then the chorus comes in with like the wailing guitars and like the drums get big, and like that's kind of to simulate that emotion of like, you know, slowly then all of a sudden kind of thing.
Right. So good.
In my song Afraid of Being Saved, I wanted the music to have somewhat of this eerie, like panicky feeling. Like, so all of my music is meant to like really drive home the emotion of the lyrics. So that's kind of how I do that.
I mean, no, you do a heck of a job, and you know, you're being so good with your time. Thank you, ENZI. But you do it also with your music videos. So let's finish there. Your music videos are fantastic, and if you go back, I mean, I'm gonna tell people, just go YouTube. Are You With Me?
Sing, are you with me?
sorry, but it is just because,
Oh,
and then move up the progression because it's so beautiful. But you always see how you had this visual importance to your songs. Can you just kind of tell that to us a little bit about, you have such great aesthetic with your songs?
oh, thank you. Yeah, I think every facet of a song is important, and that includes like the lyrics and the music and the visuals that go along with it. So the album art, the
Isn't it
photos, the promo
frustrating,
photos.
NC? I'm sure you've happened to when a great song is killed by a crappy video, or you're like,
Totally.
that doesn't make any sense.
Yes. And I think that like it happens so many times that like it just becomes poorly done, or like the idea doesn't become executed well. I really try to have my hand in like every single pocket. And so like with the music videos, just as like the music is made to portray the emotions, I want the music video to be a visual representation of that emotion and what that feels like. So like the Are You With Me video is like the gathering of everybody because like you're truly not alone.
Yeah.
The Afraid of Being Saved music video is like what I genuinely like envision when I'm having a panic attack. So it's like that's like why I make the videos the way that I do. I think some of them I am a little embarrassed, but I think that's just because I was so much younger and I'm like, I'm older now and I'm like, oh man, I want to do so much more with that. But hopefully that means I'm improving.
Yeah, hell yeah, you are. Well, listen, Kenzie Colbert, you have said it all for today. You're a shining star. You've heard that all your life, but you really are a blossoming star, and we're so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely.
Really
And,
awesome.
we're in Nashville, so whenever you start playing around town, we'll be happy to catch you out.
That would be amazing. Can't
Awesome.
wait.
All right, Enzi, take care.
Thanks. You too.